G'day, mates. This is Marine the Raccoon, and today I will be reading along Hansel and Gretel, written by none other than the Brothers Grimm. Now, if I don't sound 100% like myself, I want to say I'm sorry in advance. I do have a bit of a cold, so yeah, sorry about that, mates. If you hear me coughing, please know that I do have a bit of a cold. Now, Bailey apparently loved this story so much that she asked me to read this for today's episode of Sonic and Friends Read. I said, well, I think that's a great idea, mate. Now, without wasting any more time, let's get reading. Once upon a time, on the edge of the great forest, there lived a very poor woodcutter and his wife and his two children, Hansel and Gretel. His second wife often ill-treated the children and was forever nagging the woodcutter. The family had little enough to eat, and once there was a great famine in the land, the man could no longer even get them their daily bread. There is not enough food in the house for us all. There are too many mouths to feed. We must get rid of those two brats, she declared, and she kept on trying to persuade her husband to abandon his children in the forest. Take them miles from home, so far that they can never find their way back. Maybe someone will find them and give them a home. The downcast woodcutter didn't know what to do. Hansel, who one evening had overheard his parents' conversation, comforted Gretel. Don't worry, if they do leave us in the forest, we'll find our way home, he said, and slipping out of the house, he filled his pockets with little white pebbles, then went back to bed. All night long, the woodcutter's wife harped on at her husband till at dawn. He led Hansel and Gretel away into the forest. But as they went into the depths of the trees, Hansel dropped a little white pebble here and there on the mossy green ground. At a certain point, the two children found they really were alone. The woodcutter had plucked up enough courage to desert them, had mumbled an excuse, and was gone. Night fell, but the woodcutter did not return. Gretel began to sob bitterly. Hansel too felt scared, but he tried to hide his feelings and comforted his sister. Don't cry. Trust me. I swear I'll take you home, even if Father doesn't come back for us. Luckily, the moon was full that night, and Hansel waited till the cold light filtered through the trees. The moon was shining bright as day, and the white pebbles glittered like new silver coins. Now give me your hand, he said. We'll get home safely, you'll see. The tiny white pebbles gleaming in the moonlight showed the children their way home. They crept through a half-open window without wakening their parents. Cold, tired, but thankful to be home again, they slipped into bed. The next day, when their stepmother discovered that Hansel and Gretel had returned, she went into a rage. Stifling her anger in front of the children, she locked her bedroom door, reproaching her husband for failing to carry out her orders. The weak woodcutter protested, torn as he was between shame and fearing of disobeying his cruel wife. The wicked stepmother kept Hansel and Gretel under lock and key all day with nothing for supper but a sip of water and some hard bread. All night, husband and wife quarreled, and when dawn came, the woodcutter led the children out into the forest. Hansel, however, had not eaten his bread, and as he walked through the trees, he left a trail of crumbs behind him to mark the way. But the little boy had forgotten about the hungry birds that lived in the forest. When they saw him, they flew along behind, and in no time at all had eaten all the crumbs. Again with a lame excuse, the woodcutter left his two children by themselves. I've left a trail like last time, Hansel whispered to Gretel consolingly. But when night fell, they saw to their horror that all the crumbs had gone. I'm frightened, wept Gretel bitterly. I'm cold and hungry, and I want to go home. Don't be afraid. I'm here to look after you. Hansel tried to encourage his sister, but he too shivered when he glimpsed frightening shadows and evil eyes around them in the darkness. All night the two children huddled together for warmth at the foot of a large tree. When dawn broke, they started to wander about the forest, seeking a path, but all hope soon faded. They were well and truly lost. On they walked and walked, till suddenly they came upon a strange cottage in the middle of a glade. "This is chocolate," gasped Hansel, as he broke a lump of plaster from the wall. "And this is icing," exclaimed Gretel, putting another piece of wall in her mouth. Starving but delighted, the children began to eat pieces of candy broken off the cottage. Isn't this delicious?" said Gretel, with her mouth full. She never tasted anything so nice. "We'll stay here," Hansel declared, munching a bit of a nougat. I'm not sure what it was called. They were just about to try a piece of a biscuit door when it quietly swung open. "Well, well," said an old woman, peering out with a crafty look, "and haven't you children a sweet tooth? Come in, you've nothing to fear," went on the old woman. Unluckily for Hansel and Gretel, however, the sugar candy cottage belonged to an old witch, her trap for catching unwary victims. The two children had come to a really nasty place. "We'll get to work on that," said Hansel, "and have a real feast. I'll eat a piece of the roof. Gretel, you can eat some of the windows. That will taste real sweet." Hansel reached up and broke off the little of the roof to see how it tasted, and Gretel went up to the window pane and nibbled on it. Then a shrill voice called out from inside the house, "Nibble, nibble, little mouse, who is nibbling at my house?" The children answered, "It is not I, it is not I, it is the wind, the sky of the child of the sky, excuse me." And they went on eating without stopping. The roof tasted awfully good to Hansel, so he tore off a great big piece of it, and Gretel pushed out a whole round window pane and sat down and really enjoyed it. All at once the door opened, and a woman as old as the hills, leaning on crutches, came creeping out. Excuse me. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened that they dropped what they had in their hands. But the old woman just nodded her head and said, My, you dear children, what's brought you here? Come right in and stay with me. No harm will befall you." But the old woman had only pretended to be so friendly. Really, she was a wicked witch who lay in wait for children and had built a house of bread and sugar just to lure them inside. Witches have red eyes and can't see far, but they have keen sense of smell like animals, so that they can tell whatever human beings are near. When a child came into her power, she would kill it, cook it, and eat it. She took both of them by the hand and led them to her little house. Then she set nice food before them, milk and pancakes with sugar, apples, and nuts. After that, she made two beautiful white beds for them, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them and thought they were in heaven. Would be a real feast for her. And this is where I will stop for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 of Marine the Raccoon reads Hansel and Gretel.